welcome to this session on entrepreneurship development. There are several human resource related issues that concerns entrepreneurs, and something that's very close to the heart of the entrepreneur is the leadership issue. And we will devote our discussion in this episode on issues pertaining to leadership. In some of our previous episodes also we have discussed this concept of leadership, how it evolved, how it was studied by different researchers in different parts of the world. We have talked about the trait theories of leadership. We have talked about the behavioral aspects of leadership. We have also, I think, in one of our episodes introduced the contingency theory of leadership, wherein we talked about something called the Fiedler contingency model, which tries to map the abilities of the leader and tries to find out what is the match between the leader's style and the situational factors. Now, carrying on from there, in this particular session, we'll talk about something called the situational leadership theory, a theory that was put forward by Hershey and Blanchard called the situational leadership theory. Now, the situational leadership theory is also a contingency theory that focuses on the followers, because one of the most important component of the leader's situation is the follower, right? So what is the state of the follower is obviously an important aspect that the leader has to take into account. Successful leadership is achieved by selecting the right leadership style, and it is contingent on the level of the follower's ability and willingness to carry out the task assigned to him by the leader. Okay, so this is what we refer to as readiness on the part of the follower. Is the follower ready? Is he in a state of readiness to execute what the leader's requirements are?
And it is measured by two parameters,
It
like
is measured by
willingness and ability.
Absolutely. It is measured by these two dimensions. One is the ability of the follower,
and another is a willingness.
the other is the willingness of the follower. Okay. Now, if you look at these two factors or these two parameters of the follower, you can put any follower, I think, into one of the four categories. What are the possibilities? Like in terms of ability, what could be the situations? One is a follower. A particular follower could be able or unable to carry out a given task.
There are four types of followers.
Okay, what are they? What are they?
Like if I categorize them as R1, R2, R3, R4. R1 types are those who are both unable and unwilling.
Low on both.
Low on both.
Here is a group of followers which is neither able to carry out the task that the leader requires him to do,
and neither is willing
nor
to
is
do
he
it.
willing to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a state of that's a situational factor as far as the leader is concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Another group.
R2 is the type of people who are unable but they are willing to perform a task.
That could be another group of people who are willing to do it, but then unfortunately they don't have the capability. They are not able to carry out the task assigned to them. But then they have every willingness to carry it out. Now that would require another kind of a style to handle. Do we appreciate that?
Yeah.
It is a
Definitely.
different group of, it is another kind of a situation where you have got some
Different,
followers who are
type-
not able to do it, but then who have no dearth of willingness on their part. Okay.
Then there is a third group of people who are definitely able but then they are unwilling.
Okay, that's another interesting group. They have
Might
the
be, I
ability.
can say, lazy kind of people.
Maybe yes, maybe or whatever. The unwillingness could be on account of a variety of reasons. But then the fact is they can do the job, but they will not do the job, or they don't want to do the job for a variety of reasons. Okay, so unwillingness. Now that's another group of people, and they need a different kind of a treatment. The leader has to think. Okay.
And the last is definitely the highest on both the aspects, that is
Okay.
they are willing and they are able.
Okay. So Minu has given us the categories in which we can put all the different followers. There would be one category where people would be able and willing. There would be one category where people would be able but not willing. There could be another category where people could be
Unable
but
but
willing. And there could be a fourth category where people are neither willing
Unable
nor are they
nor
able to do it. Okay, fine. Now, given this, these categories of workers or followers, now what is the right leadership style to adopt? But before we do that, we need to know what are the possible styles of leadership that can be adopted. Now, Deblina, can you tell us what are the possible styles of leadership that a leader can adopt, given the
Sir-
fact that the subordinates are somewhat like this?
So here four basic leadership styles have been developed.
Okay.
First is telling.
Telling. Okay. Now let's see what is the main approach here. The leader would require to tell what is the job to be done.
to the follower.
Okay. Telling is more factual. Okay. More tangible aspects of the job will be discussed, how the job will be discussed, who will do the job, when he will do it, in what manner he needs to do it, are factual aspects of the job. That is telling. Okay. Now, Piyush, can you relate this to a particular group of subordinates that Meenu talked about?
Yeah, definitely. They will relate to the group of followers who are willing to do the work but
Yeah.
are unable to do the
Quite
work.
right.
That
So-
is R2.
Absolutely. So, on terms of willingness, there's no problem. These people are willing to do it. Only problem is they don't know how to do it. Or maybe they don't know an aspect of the job that needs a clarification.
So simple telling by the leader will
Yeah.
make the
Will clarify
work
those
done.
doubts. The people will be clear about what is the job and how to go about it. So it will clarify tangible doubts which the worker has about the job. Simple clarifications will work, and telling is the role that is going to be mainly performed by the leader. Mind you, when we say telling, we are trying to say that the main job is this. Okay, it's not that he does not have to do other things, but then a lot of his attention will be devoted to, telling these employees how to go about the job. He does not have to worry about the motivational aspect of these employees because they are motivated, they are willing to do it. Okay, fine, that's one.
So next leadership style is selling.
Okay, if we say that selling is a type of leadership style, Piyush, how will you match this style with a group of
Well,
subordinates?
what I think is that people who are unwilling to do the work and are unable
Unable.
to do the work, you need to sell them the idea.
Unwilling?
And
unable.
unable
want
to do
both
the work.
the-
You
Okay.
need to motivate them.
Okay.
To motivate them, you need to sell them the ideas.
Okay,
That is
fine.
very,
Let us
very
see.
important.
Selling. First of all, the people are not convinced that they need to do this job. Okay. Or they are not too convinced that they have to do this job. Okay. And because they're not convinced, maybe they feel that they will not be able to do this job. So they are really at a very low level in terms of motivation and ability. Okay. Herein, the effort to be given by the manager or the leader will have to be the maximum. He'll have to not only be aware of what the job is, how it is to be done, those aspects, the tangible aspects as we talked about, the functional aspect of the job, but also he'll have to keep on a steady dose of motivation, inspire the people to rise to the occasion and do that job. Fine. Then,
So the next leadership style is participating.
participative style of leadership. Piyush.
I think it will relate to the followers who are able to do the work but
But
are unable
unwilling.
to
Unwilling.
unwilling to do the work.
So ability is not in question. People know
ability
how
is
to do
not
it.
in question.
Aptitude is there. They know what the job is about.
But motivation,
But we have to make them
Motivation is,
participate.
they have to be motivated to participate. They somehow are unable to come to the place and do that work. Whatever might be the reason, they don't feel sufficiently driven or motivated to do that job. But once they're motivated, they'll be able to see through that job. There's no problem with that. Aptitude wise, they have the aptitude. The attitude is missing. Now, if you have to correct the attitudinal aspect of the employee or the follower, then you need to make them participate. Okay. They need to realize, the workers or the followers need to realize that we are together trying to do a job, together we are trying to fulfill a mission, and this sense of belongingness will have to be somehow brought into the picture. That's where the leader's role becomes very different from it will be in the other two previous cases. Right? Are we clear about this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Finally, what is the next
so
time?
finally, the final leadership style is delegating.
So
Okay,
it will
delegation.
relate to the followers who are able and willing. You don't need to do anything extra in that.
High on
You
the
just
both
need to
sides.
delegate the work.
1 minute. What is delegation?
Giving
Just giving-
Giving
responsibility.
authority
Au-
or responsibility.
Yeah,
Assigning
responsibility
tasks.
and authority.
Please
to
do
do
remember
it.
that when we delegate, when a leader or a manager delegates a particular task to a subordinate or a follower, he delegates the authority to carry out that job. Okay, authority, mind you, not the responsibility. The leader at the end of the day remains responsible for whatever actions are taken by the follower or the subordinate. So responsibilities can never be delegated. Okay, what can be delegated is authority, because unless you delegate the authority to that individual will not have the power or the resources in
carry
order
out
to
the-
carry out that job. So you have to delegate authority. But
So
then
here it means delegation of the right to carry out a particular
absolute
task.
delegation of the right and the power to execute that work. Okay, and of course you hold him responsible for achieving the result. But then that does not mean that your responsibility goes away. You as a leader or manager will remain responsible for the actions of your subordinates or your followers, right? So that's delegative. And a delegating style of leadership is a very well practiced kind of a leadership style. And as Piyush was telling us, that this is suitable for a group that is high on both ability and willingness. Okay. So I think with this discussion, it's gradually becoming clear that given the situation described in terms of the nature or the state of willingness of the workers or the followers, the leader will have to modify and adjust his style of leadership so that he gets the best possible results and is looked upon as an effective
Leader.
and a respected leader.
So
Okay.
it's again telling about the situation.
It is
rather.
talking about the situation. So that is the reason we are saying it's a part of the contingency theories. Okay, it dwells on the situational factors. It does not dwell on the trait aspect of leadership. Given a situation, the leader will have to behave in a particular manner, and that's the reason it's a contingency theory at the same time. Okay, that was a good discussion. Let's move on. Okay, and then we talk about yet another theory, which is called the leader-member exchange theory. Now, the leadership theories we have covered up to this point of time, be it the trait theories or the behavioral theories or even the contingency theories, they all assume that the leaders treat their followers uniformly. But is that a reality?
No.
We all have seen organizations, we have been part of organizations. Do we think that all leaders or any leader treats all his subordinates uniformly?
Not really.
No, not really. There is some kind of a distinction made by a leader.
Biases are existing over there.
There are biases existing, and there are reasons behind those biases also many a time. There could be, other vested interests also, but then keeping it simple, we would say that a leader, for whatever reason,
uniform in his behavior.
does not look upon all followers or subordinates alike. Okay, and traditionally it's done, and it's done even today. So the leader-member exchange theory argues that because of time pressures, the leader establishes special relationships with a small group of people within the organization or within his setup. And these individuals constitute what is called the in-group of people. That means these people are special people in the eyes of the leader, and the leader will give them more powers, will shower more benefits and rewards on those people, will have a higher level of trust with these people. That is the kind, and they will hog a lot more attention from the leader compared to the other group, which is considered to be the out group. So we are calling it the in group and the out group. The out group is made up of people who are not in the closer ring. And you might ask, why do leaders do it? Apparently, it seems that a leader should not do this. But then, why does a leader do this?
Simply because the leader has got more trust in the people who are in the in groups. He has
Okay.
got more trust on them.
Okay.
And even the followers have got more faith on the leader.
And
The in-group.
capability also. Why does the leader have more trust in these followers who are in the in group? Is because maybe that these are more capable people. Okay, and these people the leader can really rely on to deliver on the jobs. Okay, and he also knows that these people have the ability and the willingness, something that we are trying to relate to the previous theory, and therefore
He can delegate the jobs to them.
he can delegate the jobs. The leader depends more on a delegated style of leadership here. But compared to these people, the out group maybe is made up of people who are either unwilling or unable or a combination of these. Okay, which is why they do not get to enjoy as much trust and faith of the leader, and they need to be treated differently. So that's practical. Okay, although theoretically one might say that that's not fair, but then it's quite practical. And the other thing we have said before is many a time the time and target pressures that are always there on leaders in organizations, they have to resort to this kind of a discrimination. Okay, from there we move on to discuss yet another theory, which is called the path goal theory of leadership, developed by Robert House. Okay, and this path goal theory of leadership tries to kind of assimilate all the different the underlying theories that we have talked about, the trait theory, the behavioral theory, the contingency theory, and so on, and kind of summarizes all these and puts them into one kind of a model structure. Okay. Now, and like all models, it will have a set of leader behavior inputs. Okay, what is the kind of style or role that the leader brings into the discussions with the subordinates? Okay, that's one. And on the other side, you have got an outcome. What is the outcome? The outcome,
So it
So
can be
there
of
is
two
a-
types, like performance and satisfaction.
basically, right. Basically, it can be two things. One is the performance of the organization or the department or the division in terms of productivity and allied matters. And the other thing is, is it leading to some kind of a satisfaction among the
Satisfaction.
people who are involved in getting that kind of work done. So outcomes are basically that way, measured by performance and measured by satisfaction. So on the input side, you have got the leadership styles which are being supplied by the leader or the leaders involved, and you have on the outcome the performance and the satisfaction of the employees or the group.
But
In
sir,
between,
to-
you have got two other sets of parameters. What are these? One is the environmental factors, what we have
Situation.
referred to the situational factors so far. The situational factor theories of leadership have told us that we can look at the task structure, the formal authority available within the organization and is practiced by that organization, and the work group, the nature of the work group, the state of the subordinate, his ability and willingness that we have looked into. And of course, talking about the situational factors, one group situational factor is the subordinate group or the follower group itself. What is the kind of follower group that the leader has to deal with? Now, when we talk about the follower group or the subordinate group, we look into basically three things. One is, what is the experience of the subordinate group? What kind of work experience they have? What is the perceived ability? We again refer to the ability and the willingness syndrome. Okay, are the perceived abilities of subordinates quite high or low? That is another.
So perceived ability means the ability perceived by the leader.
By the leader, yeah.
Okay.
And third thing, very importantly, what is the locus of control? By that we mean, is the employee or the follower someone who needs more directions to be given to him from outside in order to do whatever jobs he's doing? Does he need more of controlling and monitoring, or does he control himself? Or is he a self-monitored person? That is what we mean by the locus of control. So we look into these three issues, trying to understand what is the profile of the subordinate group. Okay. We have also said that we look into the other environmental factors which are directly borrowed from one of the previous theories we talked about, the task structure, the formal authority structure, and the work group that's there. Okay. So these two, the environmental contingency factors and the subordinate or the follower contingency factors together constitute the enabling factors and the constraints to the model. Now, if you take a model normally would have what? A set of inputs,
And
a set of outputs. In between would be enabling factors and constraints.
Processing
So this, or the processing factors. So that is what we are referring to as the environmental and the subordinate contingency factors, which have an impact on the process of leadership. So they are looking at leadership as, some kind of a path, and that has to reach a particular goal. What is the path to be traversed? What are the obstacles that are going to come on that path? How to circumvent those, how to overcome those, and reach the goal and give the desired performance and job satisfaction. If that is so, then let's look into these issues with a little more detail. Like, first of all, let us see what are the different styles of leadership or leader behavior. Now, there are certain established notions about the leader behavior patterns. Meenu, can you tell us about what are the different leadership?
There are 4 types of styles. One is directive.
One is a directive leadership. Okay, what is, Shatanik, you tell us, what would a directive leader do normally?
Sir, they normally give directions rather seeking cooperation.
Okay.
They are more of autocratic.
Okay, they are more autocratic, but then their emphasis is more on telling people what to do,
yeah.
when to do, more of monitoring, more of supervision,
More of giving instructions and all.
more of giving instructions, less of giving freedom.
Next is participative, in which actually the
Okay.
leader participates with the his follower or employee.
Okay,
They seek suggestions from the
participative or
It's a two-way relationship
Huh.
in a way, I can say.
fine. So the leader basically seeks the participation of the workers or the followers in the activities involved. Okay,
even they
rather than
ask for any suggestions before decision making.
absolutely, the leader can be looked upon as someone who can get involved in the discussions, give suggestions, and that together they can think and devise solutions to problems.
It's more of a democratic style.
More of a democratic style of leadership, that is participative. Okay,
So next is supportive.
supportive. Now, what is supportive? Shatanik, what is?
Supportive leaders can be very much friendly and approachable.
So, do we see some kind of a reflection of the employee orientation
Employee
here?
oriented, exactly.
They are more relationship
More relationship oriented. And is there any other leadership
Achievement
style?
oriented.
Achievement
Last.
orientation. Now, what would this be?
Actually, these kind of leaders set higher goals and challenging goals rather,
Correct.
and assignments for the subordinates.
That's right. Now, they are more concerned with achieving something in life. Okay,
They are
and they want.
motivated by results.
They are more motivated by the results.
They are
This is not to say that
task-oriented.
They are
Mainly.
somewhat task oriented, but they do understand and appreciate that not everything can be dictated. You know, you have to rely to a large extent on the capabilities and the willingness of the subordinate or the followers to achieve it. They do not lose sight of the achievement of the goal, and that's, they always keep the goal in the vision, you know, of the followers, and they set very tough challenges so that the employees strive all the more harder. The leaders' dream is what the followers try to fulfill, and this is the kind of leadership style which, you know, which is called the achievement-oriented leadership style. So basically, we have talked about 4 different styles. One is the directive leadership, one is a supportive kind of leadership, one is a participative kind of a leadership, and of course, the highest form I would say is the achievement-oriented leadership style. Okay, now let us see. Given situation, fine. I'll ask Debolina this time. What are the different situations you would foresee in terms of the tasks and the subordinates that can be countered by a leader?
So, in situations, the first situation can be put like tasks are ambiguous as well as stressful.
Okay, fine. So we have a situation where the tasks are not very well defined. By ambiguity, we mean that it can be interpreted differently by different people. The leader might look at it one way, the worker does not seem to agree. He has a separate perception of the role or the task. So there is ambiguity in defining the task itself, the role, how it will be done. There's a lot of ambiguity in the task itself. Okay. Or the other thing is, it could be quite stressful. You know, doing that work would take a lot of stress on the employee. It will lead to a lot of stressful situations on the part of the employee. Now, if that is the kind of scenario you have in your organization or in your endeavor to achieve something by way of leadership, then what do you think, Piyush, would be a more appropriate style of leadership to adopt?
I think directive, because employees expect their leaders to tell them what to do in a situation which is ambiguous, where
Okay.
there is no certainty.
Okay.
So employees are expecting direction from the leader himself.
Right. Do remember that there is stress. So the employee is already on the edge. He's feeling that if I do something wrong, it's going to create further stress for me. And therefore, they would rather bank on the advice and the direction of the leader in a situation like this. They're unable to, you know, understand what is the actual description of the problem or the task. There is ambiguity here. And they are, you know, not very sure whether what their understanding is also the understanding of the leader. So why not look up to the leader for that kind of a direction? So both the leader and the subordinate kind of agree on this, that the leader wants to give direction and the follower needs that direction in order to be successful in doing that particular job. So directive kind of a leadership style is most likely to succeed in an environment like that. Well, Debolina, what other kind of situation can we envisage?
So, second situation can be when tasks are highly structured or well defined.
Okay, the opposite. The tasks are well defined, well structured. There is no need to explain what is required to be done in order to accomplish that task, or let's say who will do it. Okay, these things are clear. There is no ambiguity. It's open to understanding by all, and the same understanding is shared by the followers as well as the leader. Now, Piyush, what is the kind of leadership style which you think will be appropriate?
I think you just need to support the process. You
Correct.
need supportive kind of leadership over here.
Correct. Nobody is in doubt. The subordinates or the followers are not in doubt. They know what is to be done, how it is to be done. There is no ambiguity. Who will do it, when it is to be done, everything is clear. What do you need a leader for? To support you. Should something go wrong in trying to do what
He's there.
he is there, he'll back you up. Okay, any other situation you can foresee?
Yes, sir. So, the third situation is ambiguously structured task.
Okay. Tasks are there, structuring is there, all right. Efforts have been made to delineate the tasks and the roles, but then it's not a good job done. There is a lot of ambiguity. It's open to interpretation. People can view it differently.
So I think results are more important over here. So
Results are important.
Achievement orientation comes into play.
Okay.
So the leadership style should be achievement oriented.
Okay, okay. So here, because the task itself, you know, for whatever reason, the task is not very well defined. There's ambiguity, and to unravel this ambiguity and still be successful and effective, you need people who are
Motivated
high
by
on
leadership.
motivation. You know, they know that they want to achieve, and they know that there are going to be obstacles and hurdles on the way. So they are kind of sub leaders, you know, who are there achieving their own goals. The leader needs to only set higher goals, and the leader only needs to make them aware that we are all in it together, and we need to together achieve certain goals that we can be proud of. So he needs to give a lot of liberty, but at the same time, he needs to set very high standards. Okay, and because he does it because he knows that the employees or the followers are capable of achieving those standards. Any other thing that we are looking at? Any
So
other
the
situation?
last situation can be put like where employees have high locus of control.
Okay, yeah, Piyush. Employees
you have got
know
a-
what is to be done. They are guided from within rather than from without. Okay, that means they are basically saying that we don't need leaders. We are self-led. What is the kind of role?
You just need to participate with them. That is
Absolutely.
important.
So these are people who not only understand their jobs, their tasks, their roles, how to go about it. They also understand a fair bit of leadership. They know how the thing needs to be guided. So all that is required is make them bring the man to the task, and when they are together, the results are bound to follow. Fine. So I think this really is the crux of the whole model, the path goal theory, which tries to tie up all the issues concerning leadership, the inputs in terms of the leadership styles, the output in terms of performance and the satisfaction levels, the contingency factors in terms of the environmental factors or job oriented factors, and the employee or the follower oriented contingency factors, and tries to show the whole thing as a process rather than something happening spontaneously. Okay, so this is the path goal theory for you, and with this we really have come to the end of our discussions on leadership as a core issue, which is so very pivotal for the development of an entrepreneurial exercise. Are you clear about what we have discussed over the last few episodes on leadership?
Yes, sir.
Well then, thank you very much.